You are now parked on McPherson's Ridge. Directly in front of you to the north is the Chambersburg Pike, running east and west. At around 7:30 in the morning on July 1st, 1863, a column of Confederate soldiers belonging to Major General Henry Heast's division were advancing east down this road towards Gettysburg when Union Lieutenant Marcellus Jones of the 8th Illinois Cavalry spotted them, grabbed a carbine from one of his troopers, and fired the first shot of the battle. Following the opening shots, Buford's cavalry were methodically pushed back closer and closer to where you are currently parked. Now remember, Buford's main objective is to hold the Confederates west of Gettysburg until the Union infantry can arrive and take over. Buford is specifically holding out for one man in particular, Major General John F. Reynolds, the left-wing commander of the Army of the Potomac, and widely regarded as one of the best Union Corps commanders. So respected was Reynolds, in fact, that when President Lincoln sought a replacement for General Hooker as the head of the Army, Reynolds was top on his list. It was not until after Reynolds turned down the command for mainly political reasons that President Lincoln then ordered General Meade to assume command. By 10 o'clock in the morning, things were getting pretty desperate. Buford's troopers had been forced to cross Willoughby Run to your left and were tenaciously trying to hold back the Confederates from gaining the town. At many points over the course of the three-day battle, you will see that the fates of men were decided by minutes and seconds. This was one of those times, because at approximately 10:30 a.m., just as Confederate soldiers were entering the woods directly to your left, the lead elements of the Union First Corps arrived on the scene. These Union troops were not just any volunteers. They were the famed men of the Iron Brigade, the black-hatted boys. The men of this brigade were universally recognized by their regular Army black felt hardy hat they wore. Volunteers from the states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Indiana, these soldiers had developed a rugged reputation for fighting hard as iron. Arriving near this location, Reynolds noticed the Confederates coming through the woods and personally took command of the Iron Brigade, yelling, "Forward, men! Forward! For God's sakes, forward!" As the fighting commenced, Reynolds turned to look for more reserves when he was shot in the back of the head. He was dead before he hit the ground, the highest-ranking officer to be killed in the Battle of Gettysburg. The marker atop the mound of earth visible to your left marks the approximate location where Reynolds was slain. The men of the Iron Brigade did not fail their commander. The 2nd Wisconsin led the way, charging headlong at the Confederates in McPherson's woods, followed quickly by 3 more regiments of the brigade. The fighting was intense, the soldiers of both sides firing muskets literally feet from each other. The woods were littered with corpses, but the men of the Iron Brigade had, for the moment, blunted the Confederate advance, capturing dozens of prisoners, including one Confederate general, James J. Archer. Shortly after his capture, Archer was taken behind Union lines, where he was met by Union General Abner Doubleday, the legendary founder of the game of baseball. Doubleday recognized Archer from their days in the regular army together before the war. Seeing his friend, Doubleday said, "Good morning, Archer, how are you? I'm glad to see you." Archer, who was not having a good day, replied, "Well, I'm not glad to see you by a damn sight." Another person who took part in the fighting along McPherson's Ridge was a man by the name of John Burns. Burns was not your ordinary soldier. In fact, he wasn't a soldier at all. Just under 70 years of age, Burns was the former town constable of Gettysburg and a feisty Scotsman. As Union troops moved through the town to fight the Confederates, Burns pulled out his musket and joined them. A veteran of the War of 1812, he was not going to let the Confederates enter his town uncontested. Wounded several times during the fighting on July 1st, he was carried from the field and later recovered. He died in 1872 and was buried in the Gettysburg's Evergreen Cemetery. As far as we know, Burns was the only civilian to take up arms and fight with the Union Army here at Gettysburg. Interestingly, despite the fact that there were 170,000 men fighting here in a 25 square mile area, in and around the town, we know of only one Gettysburg civilian, a 20-year-old girl named Mary Virginia Wade, who was killed in the battle. Known to her friends and family as Jenny, she was killed by a stray bullet that entered the kitchen where she was baking bread for Union soldiers on July 3rd. As we prepare to head to the next tour stop, let me take a second to recap the events so far. The fighting started off early along the Chambersburg Pike in front of you, about 2 miles to the west on your left. By 10:30 that morning, the action had moved back to where we are now parked. At this point, the Union First Corps arrived and stopped the Confederate advance. At noon, there was a lull in the battle, as both sides brought up reinforcements and reorganized their battered commands.